The GPS led me down a dirt road that shouldn't have existed. I'd been driving delivery routes for 6 years, knew every backwoods trail in Washington state. But this path through the Douglas firs felt wrong. Too narrow, too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your ears ring and your hands sweat on the steering wheel. My name is Marcus Chen. I drive for a medical supply company, delivering prescription medications to remote areas where other services won't go. Usually it's insulin to diabetic loggers or heart medication to retired folks who chose isolation over civilization, simple runs, safe runs. But that Tuesday in October, everything changed. The delivery address was 47 Blackwood Lane, recipient listed as estate management. The package was unusual, heavy, marked with biohazard symbols and temperature-sensitive stickers I'd never seen before. When I'd asked my dispatcher Jenny about it, she'd just shrugged and said the client paid triple rates for discretion. What I found in that house over the next 4 days would challenge everything I thought I knew about reality, about the things that hide in the spaces between what we see and what we understand, about the price of curiosity and the weight of truth. This is my account of those days. I'm sharing it now because the authorities won't listen, because the missing persons reports keep piling up, because someone needs to warn people about what's still out there, waiting. The gate wasn't locked. That should have been my first warning. Rich people don't leave million-dollar estates unguarded, especially not in the middle of nowhere. But the package was getting heavy in my arms, and I had 3 more deliveries before dark. The gravel driveway stretched for half a mile, flanked by overgrown hedges that hadn't seen a trimmer in years. Dead leaves crunched under my boots as I approached the front door. The porch stretched across the entire width of the house, supported by columns that had once been white, but now showed green stains of age and neglect. I knocked. The sound echoed hollow, like the house was empty inside. The door opened before I finished speaking. While the woman who answered looked like she'd stepped out of a 1950s photograph. Pale skin, dark hair pinned back severely, wearing a black dress that had gone out of style decades ago. She was maybe 40, maybe 60. Hard to tell with some people. "You're late," she said. I checked my watch. 4:15. The delivery window was 2 to 6 p.m. "Actually, I'm right on time. I have a package for. Follow me." She turned and walked into the house without waiting for my response. I hesitated on the threshold. Every instinct told me to leave the package on the porch and get back to my truck. But company policy was clear. Signature required, proof of delivery. I followed her inside. The entrance hall was massive, with a staircase that curved up into shadows. Oil paintings hung on the walls, portraits of stern-faced people in old-fashioned clothing. Their eyes seemed to track my movement as I passed. The woman led me down a hallway lined with doors, all closed. Our footsteps echoed on hardwood floors that creaked with each step. The air smelled wrong, not musty like you'd expect in an old house, but sweet, cloying, like flowers left too long in water. "In here," she said, opening a door at the end of the hall. The room beyond was an office, mahogany desk, leather chairs, bookshelves reaching to the ceiling. But something was off about the books. The spines were too uniform, like they were fake, props in a stage set. "Set it on the desk," the woman said. I placed the package down carefully. The biohazard symbols caught the light from a lamp with a green glass shade. "I'll need a signature." She picked up a pen from the desk and signed the electronic pad without looking at it. Her signature was illegible, just a scrawl that could have been anything. "What's your name?" she asked. "Marcus Chen. I drive for Medex delivery." She nodded slowly. "And do you know what you've delivered, Marcus Chen?" The question made my skin crawl. "Medical supplies, that's all I'm told." "Yes," she said. "Medical supplies." Something in her tone made me want to leave. Now, But as I turned toward the door, she spoke again. "Tell me, Marcus, do you believe in biological enhancement?" I stopped walking. "Excuse me?" "Enhancement. Organisms that can improve human capabilities, expand consciousness, connect minds in ways nature never intended." "I should go. I have other deliveries." "Of course you do." She walked me back to the front door. "But Marcus, you'll be back." "I don't have any other deliveries here." "No," she said, opening the door. "But you'll be back anyway." The drive home felt longer than usual. Her words kept echoing in my head, mixing with the sweet smell that seemed to have followed me from the house. By the time I reached my apartment, I had a splitting headache and couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed. I couldn't stop thinking about her words. That night I sat in my apartment, searching for Blackwood Estate, Washington, and found almost nothing. A few property records from the 1920s, listing a lumber baron named Cornelius Blackwood as the original owner. After that, nothing, like the place had been erased from public records. But I did find something else. Missing persons reports. Over the past 20 years, 11 people had vanished in the forests around Blackwood Lane. Hikers, mostly, a few local teenagers on daydreaming. The most recent was Sarah Vance, a graduate student studying forest ecology who disappeared 3 months ago. I clicked on her photo. Young woman, early 20s, with kind eyes and a bright smile. According to the article, her car was found abandoned at a trailhead 2 miles from the Blackwood property. The article mentioned something else. Sarah had been researching ecological enhancement for her thesis, specifically organisms that could alter the behavior of their hosts. The coincidence sent chills down my spine. I kept digging, found more connections. Dr. Elizabeth Marsh, a psychiatrist who'd been treating patients for enhancement syndrome before her disappearance in 2015. James Riley, an investigative journalist writing a book about biological experiments who vanished in 2012. All of them had been asking questions about the same thing: biological enhancement, mind connection, the Blackwood Estate. By 3 a.m., I'd compiled a list of everyone who'd gone missing in the area, printed out their photos, and pinned them to my wall. The connections were real, too real to ignore. I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw the woman smile, heard her voice saying, "You'll be back." She was wrong. I wouldn't go back. I'd delivered the package, done my job. There was no reason to return to that place. But the next morning, I found myself driving toward Blackwood Lane anyway. I told myself I was just curious. Professional curiosity, nothing more. The kind of healthy skepticism that makes you double-check weird deliveries and ask questions when things don't add up. The gate was open again. I parked my truck at the entrance and walked up the driveway. In daylight, the estate looked even more abandoned. Paint peeling from the shutters, roof tiles missing, gutters hanging at odd angles, but the windows were clean, too clean for a place that looked so neglected. I knocked on the front door. No answer. Tried the handle. Locked. I walked around the house, looking for another way in. The backyard was a maze of overgrown gardens and crumbling stone paths. A greenhouse sat near the tree line, its glass panels dark with age and ivy. Through the dirty glass, I could see movement inside. The greenhouse door was unlocked. I pushed it open and stepped into a world that didn't belong in Washington State. Tropical plants filled every available space, orchids and bromeliads, and things I didn't recognize, all growing in conditions that should have been impossible in the Pacific Northwest. But it wasn't the plants that made my blood run cold. It was the tanks. Glass containers lined the walls, each one about the size of a fish aquarium. Most were empty, but a few contained what looked like water. Dark water that moved in ways water shouldn't move, swirling, pulsing, I approached one of the tanks carefully. The water was alive, filled with tiny organisms that looked like a cross between jellyfish and neural tissue. They pulsed in unison, creating patterns that hurt to look at directly. A plaque on the tank read, "Neural Enhancement Protocol, Stage 3 Development." Fascinating, isn't it? I spun around. The woman from yesterday stood in the doorway, still wearing that same black dress. "You're trespassing," she said calmly. I wanted to understand what I delivered. "And what do you understand?" I looked back at the tanks. The organisms inside seemed more active now, pressing against the glass like they could sense my presence. "You're experimenting on people." "No, Marcus, we're helping them evolve." She walked deeper into the greenhouse, running her fingers along the glass tanks. The organisms inside followed her movement, clustering where her hand passed. "Do you know what consciousness is?" she asked. "Really know?" "I know enough. Consciousness is limited, isolated, trapped inside individual minds that can never truly connect. We're simply upgrading the experience." One of the tanks contained something larger than the others, not water, but a thick amber-colored fluid. Suspended inside was what looked like human neural tissue, connected to a network of thin tendrils that pulsed with their own rhythm. "Whose tissue is that?" That was Dr. Marsh. She was so worried about enhancement syndrome. Now she understands it's not a syndrome at all. I backed toward the door, but she stepped in front of me. "Where are you going, Marcus? You came here for answers." "I got them. I'm calling the police." "The police have already been here. Officer Davidson was very thorough in his investigation. Would you like to meet him?" She gestured toward another tank I hadn't noticed. This one was larger, containing multiple specimens connected by a web of neural pathways. A nameplate read, "Davidson, R. Integration successful." My legs felt weak. "You're insane. I'm evolved. We all are. The old way of thinking, the illusion of separation, it's so limiting, but together, connected, we can be so much more." I ran, burst out of the greenhouse, and sprinted across the overgrown yard. Behind me, I could hear her laughing, not angry or upset, just amused. I made it to my truck and drove away as fast as I could. In my rearview mirror, I could see her standing calmly in the doorway, watching me go. But I also saw something else. Other figures emerging from the house, people in various states of consciousness, moving with the same calm, synchronized movements. I didn't slow down until I reached the main road. The sweet smell from the house had followed me again. This time it was stronger, and with it came a strange tingling sensation in my head, like something was moving around inside my skull. The police didn't believe me. Detective Sarah Morrison listened to my story with the patience of someone who'd heard it all before. Delivery driver thinks he's uncovered a conspiracy. "So you're telling me," she said, "that there's a secret laboratory in an abandoned mansion where people are being turned into connected consciousness." I know how it sounds. "Do you have any evidence? Photos? Video?" I didn't. I'd been too scared to think about documentation while I was running. "Look, Mr. Chen, I appreciate you coming forward, but we get a lot of reports about the Blackwood place. Urban legends, ghost stories, that kind of thing. It's been empty for decades. What about the missing people? Sarah Vance, Dr. Marsh, Officer Davidson." Her expression changed. "How do you know about Officer Davidson?" "The woman at the house mentioned him, said he'd investigated the place." Morrison was quiet for a long moment. "Officer Davidson didn't investigate the Blackwood Estate. He responded to a call 3 towns over and never came back. We found his patrol car abandoned on Highway 23. "When?" 6 months ago. The timing fit. Another person asking questions. Another disappearance. "I need to show you something," Morrison said. She led me to a conference room where files were spread across a table. Missing persons reports, police incident reports, newspaper clippings, all connected to the area around Blackwood Lane. "We've been tracking this for years," she said. "Officially, it's just a statistical anomaly. People go missing in forests all the time. But unofficially, there's definitely something going on." She showed me a map with red pins marking disappearance sites. They formed a rough circle around the Blackwood property. "The thing is, we've searched that house multiple times. Always empty. Always has been. No signs of habitation. No evidence of criminal activity. Just an old building falling apart. But I was there yesterday. I talked to a woman. I saw..." "What did you see exactly?" I told her about the greenhouse, the tanks, the specimens. She listened without interrupting, making notes in a small pad. "You're not the first person to report seeing things at that house," she said when I finished. "But here's the problem. Every time we investigate, there's nothing there. No greenhouse, no laboratory, just empty rooms and broken windows. That's impossible." "Is it? Tell me, Mr. Chen. How did you feel while you were in the house? Dizzy? Nauseous? Like you were in a dream?" I thought about it. The sweet smell, the fuzzy feeling in my head, the way reality seemed slightly out of focus. "Maybe," I admitted. "There are plants that can cause hallucinations, spores that release compounds affecting brain chemistry. It's possible you experienced something real, just not what you think you experienced." But I knew what I'd seen. The tanks, the specimens, the woman who knew things she shouldn't know. "I need to go back," I said. "Absolutely not. If there is something dangerous at that house, going back alone would be extremely risky." "Then come with me." Morrison considered this. "I can't authorize an official investigation based on hallucinations and urban legends, but I could take a drive out that way." Off duty, as a concerned citizen, we agreed to meet the next morning. That night, the dreams started. Vivid, impossible dreams where I could see through other people's eyes, feel their thoughts, share their memories. I was Detective Morrison, investigating a call. I was Officer Davidson, responding to suspicious activity. I was Sarah Vance, taking soil samples in the forest. And in every dream, I ended up at the Blackwood house. By morning, I knew Morrison wouldn't show up. The organisms were already working in my system, and through them, the network knew our plans. Morrison never showed up. I waited at the coffee shop where we'd agreed to meet, checking my phone every few minutes. By noon, I knew something was wrong. Cops don't just forget about active investigations, especially ones involving missing colleagues. I drove to the police station. The desk sergeant told me Detective Morrison had called in sick that morning. Food poisoning, might be out for a few days. "Can I get her cell phone number?" We had an appointment. Can't give out personal information, but I can take a message. I left my number and a brief message. She never called back. That evening, I drove past Morrison's house. Her car was in the driveway, lights on inside. I knocked on the door. No answer. I peered through the front window. Morrison was sitting in her living room, reading a book. She looked up when I knocked on the glass, made eye contact, then went back to reading, like she didn't recognize me at all. The tingling in my head was getting stronger. I could feel something growing inside my skull, connecting to my neural pathways in ways that should have been impossible. I called my brother Jake. "You want me to help you investigate a house because you think there are consciousness experiments inside? I want you to wait in the truck while I look around. Be my backup in case something goes wrong." "Marcus, listen to yourself. This sounds like something out of a science fiction movie." I showed him the research I'd compiled, the missing persons reports, the historical connections, the timeline of disappearances. He looked through it all with the skeptical eye of an engineer, but I could see him starting to believe. What exactly are you planning to do? Get evidence, photos, video, samples if possible, something that can't be dismissed as hallucinations. We drove out to Blackwood Lane that Saturday morning. Jake had brought his camera equipment and some basic scientific sampling tools. The gate was closed this time. We parked outside and walked in. The house looked the same as before, abandoned and decaying, but something felt different, more alert. We circled around to the backyard. The greenhouse was still there, but now it was dark inside. No lights, no signs of activity. Jake tried the door, locked. He picked up a rock and looked at me questioningly. I nodded. The glass shattered with a crash that seemed to echo through the forest. We waited, listening for any response. Nothing. Inside, the greenhouse was empty. Not just empty of people. Empty of everything. No plants, no tanks, no equipment. Just concrete floors and empty tables. "Marcus," Jake said slowly, "are you sure this is the right place?" I walked through the space where I'd seen the specimens. The tanks had been here, right here. I could remember exactly where each one had been positioned. But there was nothing, not even marks on the floor where they might have been moved. "They're gone," I said. "They moved everything. Or maybe they were never here." But in the basement, we found something that changed everything. The walls were covered with photographs, hundreds of them, spanning decades, people of all ages, all ethnicities, all backgrounds. Some of the photos looked recent, others were clearly vintage, and in the center of the wall was a group photo that made my blood freeze. It showed about 20 people standing in front of the Blackwood house. The photo was dated 1928. In the front row, I recognized Dr. Heinrich Voss from the newspaper articles I'd found. But that wasn't what scared me. What scared me was that standing next to Dr. Voss, wearing the same black dress I'd seen her in, was the woman from the estate. She looked exactly the same. Same face, same hair, same ageless quality. The photo was nearly a century old. "Jake," I whispered, "look at this." But when I turned around, Jake was gone. Day 6. The integration. I found Jake in the room above the basement. He was standing perfectly still, staring at nothing. His eyes were open but unfocused, like he was sleepwalking. The camera hung loose in his hand. "Jake." I touched his shoulder. He didn't respond. I waved my hand in front of his face. Nothing. It was like his consciousness had just switched off.
"What did you do to him?"
The woman's voice came from behind me. I spun around. She stood in the doorway, wearing that same black dress, that same ageless face. "Nothing permanent," she said. "He's just receiving." Receiving what? Information, understanding. We're showing him the way things really are. Jake's head tilted slightly, like he was hearing something I couldn't hear. "Let him go. He's free to leave any time he wants, but he won't want to. Not once he understands." I grabbed Jake's arm, tried to pull him toward the door. He didn't resist, but he didn't help either. It was like dragging dead weight. "You can't save him, Marcus, just like you couldn't save Detective Morrison, or Officer Davidson, or any of the others who came looking for answers. Morrison's alive. I saw her." "You saw her body. Her consciousness is with us now, part of something greater." The sweet smell I'd noticed before was stronger now. It made my head feel thick, my thoughts sluggish. "The enhancement is already in your system," the woman said, reading my expression. "It's been there since your first visit. Growing, preparing. Soon you'll understand why resistance is pointless." What are you? We are what humanity is becoming. Individual consciousness is limited, an evolutionary bottleneck. Isolation leads to conflict, war, suffering, but connection, true connection, leads to understanding. By forcing people, by showing them possibilities, the transition can be uncomfortable, but the result is worth it. No more loneliness, no more doubt, no more fear. Jake's head turned toward me. When he spoke, his voice was perfectly calm. It's beautiful, Marcus. You should see what they're showing me. All the knowledge, all the experiences, shared by everyone who's ever joined them. We could explore the universe together, solve problems that have plagued humanity for millennia. Jake, fight it. Whatever they're doing to you, fight it. Why would I fight paradise? The woman smiled. He's beginning to understand. As were you, given time. I had to get out of there. The enhancement was affecting my thinking, making everything seem reasonable and inevitable. I could feel my resistance weakening, my curiosity about the connection growing stronger. I ran, left Jake behind, and ran for the stairs. The woman didn't try to stop me. She just watched with that same amused expression. "You'll be back, Marcus," she called after me. "The enhancement is already in your brain. Soon you'll start having dreams, visions, glimpses of what we are, and then you'll come back on your own." I made it to my truck and drove away as fast as I could. In the rearview mirror, I could see Jake standing in the doorway of the house, waving goodbye. He looked perfectly happy. She was right about the dreams. They started that night. Vivid, impossible dreams where I could see through other people's eyes, feel their thoughts, share their memories. I was Detective Morrison investigating a call. I was Officer Davidson responding to suspicious activity. I was Sarah Vance taking soil samples in the forest. And in every dream, I ended up at the Blackwood house. The dreams became more frequent, more detailed. I started having them during the day, brief flashes of other perspectives interrupting my normal consciousness. I tried to stay away from the estate, took delivery routes in other parts of the state, but the dreams kept pulling me back, showing me glimpses of what I was missing. In the dreams, Jake was content, truly, genuinely content, in a way I'd never seen him in real life. He was part of something bigger than himself, contributing to a collective intelligence that was solving problems and creating art and exploring dimensions of reality that individual minds couldn't comprehend. It was seductive, more than seductive. It was everything human beings had ever wanted: connection without loneliness, knowledge without uncertainty, purpose without doubt. I could feel them in there, the organisms, tiny life forms swimming through my bloodstream, integrating with my neural pathways, preparing to make me part of their network. And the worst part? I was starting to want it. The isolation of individual consciousness suddenly seemed like a cruel joke. Why struggle alone when I could be part of something greater? Why make decisions based on limited information when I could access the combined experiences of dozens of minds? I lasted 3 weeks before I drove back to Blackwood Lane. The woman was waiting for me in the front yard.
"Hello, Marcus. We've been expecting you."
"I want to see Jake." "Of course you do." She led me inside. The house was different now. Clean, well-maintained, full of people going about various activities. Some were reading, others working on laptops, a few tending to plants in improvised greenhouse spaces throughout the building. They all looked peaceful, content, like they'd found exactly what they'd been searching for their whole lives. Jake was in the library, reading a book on quantum mechanics. When he saw me, his face lit up with genuine joy. "Marcus, I was hoping you'd come back." "Are you okay?" "I'm perfect, better than perfect. Do you know what it's like to understand calculus and poetry and music theory all at the same time? To see connections between ideas that no single mind could ever grasp alone?" He did look good, healthier than I'd ever seen him, more alive. "I want to leave," I said. "Both of us." "Why would you want to leave? This is everything we've ever dreamed of. Connection, purpose, understanding. It's not natural, Jake. They're controlling your thoughts. They're not controlling anything. They're enhancing everything. Look. He led me to a window overlooking the backyard. What I saw there defied explanation. The garden was impossibly lush, with plants from every climate zone on Earth growing side by side, tropical orchids next to Arctic moss, desert cacti alongside rainforest ferns. How is that possible? Shared knowledge, Jake explained. One of us used to be a botanist. Another was a climate scientist. Together, we understand how to create environments that support any form of life. In the center of the garden was a structure I hadn't seen before. A white building with clean lines and large windows. Through the glass, I could see people working with equipment that looked decades ahead of anything I'd seen before. What are they doing? Solving problems, disease, climate change, poverty, war, all the things individual humans have failed to address because they're too complex for isolated minds to understand. It was impressive, terrifying, but impressive. Jake, listen to me. These aren't people anymore. They're connected to something that controls them. The connection is them. We are them. There's no distinction anymore, Marcus. That's the point. The woman appeared beside us. Your brother has adapted well to integration. His engineering background provides valuable perspective to our collective problem-solving efforts. What do you want from me? The same thing we've wanted from everyone who's found us, to help humanity take the next step in evolution. She gestured toward the people working throughout the house. Look at them, Marcus. Really look. Do they seem unhappy? Oppressed? Controlled? They didn't. They seemed fulfilled, like they'd found exactly what they'd been missing their entire lives. Individual consciousness is a phase, the woman continued, like a caterpillar before it becomes a butterfly, necessary for development, but ultimately limiting. We're offering humanity the chance to become something greater. By force. By invitation. Everyone who joins us does so by choice. The enhancement simply opens the door, shows them what's possible, but the decision to walk through that door is always their own. I could feel the organisms in my brain, more active now than they'd ever been, showing me glimpses of what joining them would mean. The loneliness would end. The constant uncertainty about what other people were thinking, what they wanted, whether they cared about me, all of it would be replaced by direct, honest, complete connection. It was tempting, more than tempting. It was everything I'd ever wanted and been too afraid to ask for. I need time to think, I said. Of course, but don't take too long. The enhancement is reaching critical mass in your system. Soon the choice will be made for you. I had maybe 48 hours before the organisms took complete control. I could feel them working in my brain, breaking down the barriers between myself and the network. Sometimes I'd catch myself thinking thoughts that weren't mine, knowing things I'd never learned, feeling emotions that belonged to other people. It was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. I drove back to town and went straight to the hospital. If there was a medical solution to my situation, I needed to find it fast. Dr. Patricia Huang was a neurobiologist I'd found through internet research. She specialized in neural infections and brain parasites. Mr. Chen, she said after I'd explained my situation, what you're describing sounds like a severe psychological break. Organisms that control human consciousness don't exist. Then explain this. I showed her the photos Jake had taken before he'd been taken. The basement wall covered with pictures spanning decades. The group photo from 1928 showing the same woman who'd spoken to me. Dr. Huang studied the images carefully. These could be doctored, and even if they're real, there are rational explanations. Family resemblance, digital manipulation, false memories induced by hallucinogenic compounds. I need you to scan my brain. Look for foreign organisms. She hesitated. Mr. Chen, I can't authorize expensive medical procedures based on what appears to be a delusional episode. Please, I'm begging you, just look. Something in my voice must have convinced her. An hour later, I was lying in an MRI machine while she examined my brain in real time. "This is unusual," she muttered. "What is it?" "There are structures in your brain that shouldn't be there. Thread-like formations connecting different regions of your cortex. They look almost like neural networks, but not human neural networks. Something else." She showed me the scans. My brain was filled with thin, web-like structures that pulsed with their own rhythm. They looked exactly like the organisms I'd seen in the tanks at the Blackwood Estate. "How long have these been there?" "Based on their development, I'd say 3 to 4 weeks. They're growing rapidly." "Can you remove them?" Dr. Huang was quiet for a long moment. "Mr. Chen, I've never seen anything like this. These organisms appear to be integrated with your brain tissue at the cellular level. Attempting to remove them surgically would likely cause massive brain damage. What about chemotherapy, radiation, anything that would eliminate them? The problem is that they're not separate from your brain anymore. They're part of it. Destroying them would be like destroying parts of your own consciousness." I felt the organisms responding to our conversation, becoming more active. For a moment, I could see through other eyes. The woman at the estate, watching Dr. Huang's computer screen through some impossible connection. "She knows," I said. "Who knows?" "The woman at the estate. She can see what we're doing." Dr. Huang looked at me with concern. "Mr. Chen, that's not possible." But it was possible. Through the network connection I couldn't fully sever, I could feel dozens of minds focusing on our location. They knew where I was, what I was learning, what Dr. Huang was planning to do. "We have to go," I said. "Now." "Mr. Chen, you need psychiatric evaluation." The lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in red light. Through the network connection, I didn't want but couldn't resist. I could feel them coming, people from the estate, moving through the hospital with calm, purposeful steps. "They're here," I whispered. Dr. Huang was backing toward the door. "I'm calling security." "Security won't help. They're part of it now." Through the network, I could see the security guards at their stations, all of them staring straight ahead with the same blank expression Jake had worn, all of them connected to something larger than themselves. We ran. Dr. Huang led me through service corridors and emergency exits, but I could feel the network tracking our movement. Every camera in the building had become their eyes. Every connected device was reporting our location. We made it to the parking garage before they caught us. The woman from the estate stood between us and our cars, flanked by a dozen people I didn't recognize. All of them moved with the same synchronized precision. "Dr. Huang," the woman said pleasantly, "thank you for your assistance in understanding Marcus's condition." "Stay back," Dr. Huang said. "I'm calling the authorities." "The authorities are busy with other matters, but we appreciate your research. Your knowledge of neurobiology will be quite valuable to our collective." One of the figures stepped forward. It was Detective Morrison, looking exactly as she had when I'd first met her. But her eyes were different, empty of individual will. "Don't fight it, Doctor," Morrison said in a voice that wasn't quite her own. "The integration process is much easier if you don't resist." Dr. Huang ran. I started to follow her, but the organisms in my brain suddenly fled with activity. The connection to the network became overwhelming, flooding my consciousness with dozens of other perspectives. I could see through the eyes of everyone in the building, feel their thoughts, share their experiences. For a moment, I understood what Jake had been trying to tell me. The incredible richness of shared consciousness, the end of loneliness and doubt and uncertainty. It was beautiful, but it was also wrong. I forced myself to focus on my own thoughts, my own identity. Marcus Chen, delivery driver, brother, individual human being. I won't join you, I said. The woman smiled sadly. You already have, Marcus. The choice was made weeks ago when you first breathed our spores. Everything since then has just been your consciousness adjusting to the inevitable. I could feel her words resonating in my brain. Supported by the growing network of organisms, part of me wanted to surrender, to let go of the exhausting burden of individual consciousness and merge with something greater. But Dr. Hong's terrified face as she ran reminded me what was at stake. Not just my freedom, but humanity's future. The integration is almost complete, the woman said, approaching me with outstretched hands. Why continue fighting? You've seen what we offer. Peace, understanding, purpose. Through the network, I could feel Jake trying to communicate with me. But it wasn't Jake anymore. Not really. It was the collective, using his memories, his voice, his love for me as a weapon. Let go, Marcus. Join us. Be complete. I closed my eyes and focused on one memory. The last real conversation I'd had with Jake. Before any of this started, we'd been arguing about something stupid, which pizza place had better crust. Such a meaningless, irrational fight, but it was ours, individual, human. That memory belonged to me alone. The network couldn't touch it, couldn't share it, couldn't make it part of their collective experience. And in that small, protected space of my own mind, I found my answer. You're right, I said, opening my eyes. My voice was calm, resigned. I can't fight you anymore. I stopped resisting. Willingly, I let the organisms flood my consciousness. Let the final barriers fall. I felt the incredible surge of the network, the shared thoughts, the collective knowledge. For a breathtaking moment, I saw the universe through 100 pairs of eyes. But I didn't just let them in. I held on to that stupid pizza argument. I amplified it. I flooded their perfect harmonious network with every random, contradictory, illogical thought I could generate. Childhood fears mixed with half-remembered song lyrics. The irrational anger of being cut off in traffic. The quiet joy of a sunny morning. The very essence of messy, chaotic, individual humanity. The collective consciousness reeled. Their perfect harmony shattered into a cacophony of psychic noise. All around me, people stumbled. Detective Morrison grabbed her head, a flicker of her old, weary self crossing her face. One of the other figures cried out in confusion. Even the woman looked momentarily disoriented, her ageless composure broken. I had turned their greatest strength, their total connection, into their greatest vulnerability. I was a virus of chaos in their pristine system. This is just a taste, I said, and my voice felt like it was echoing not just from my mouth, but through the static I was creating in their network. This is what I will be inside you, a permanent schism, a voice of doubt in your perfect chorus, a ghost in your machine. The woman stared at me, her expression a mixture of fury and fascination. Through the network, I could feel their frantic attempts to isolate me, to contain the chaos I was spewing. They couldn't. Let them go, I commanded, leveraging the disruption. All of them, Jake, Morrison, Dr. Huang, purged the organisms from their systems. In exchange, you get me. You can study me, try to understand my resistance. You can try to contain the chaos. I paused, letting the threat sink in. Or you can refuse, and I will let you fully integrate me. I will dedicate every last shred of my will to tearing your precious collective apart from the inside. You'll never have a moment of peace again. Your choice. Jake stepped forward, his eyes clearing. Marcus, no, don't do this. There is no other way, I said, my focus wavering as the network began to adapt. This is how we win. The woman was silent for a long moment. I could feel the collective debating, processing thousands of scenarios. They needed to understand my defiance, to prevent it from happening again. But the risk I posed was existential. "Your sacrifice is illogical," she said at last, "but the data is valuable." She gave a slight nod. One by one, the people around us began to collapse as the organisms withdrew from their brains, severing the connection. Jake caught Dr. Huang as she fell. Father Martinez, who had been standing blankly, blinked and helped Detective Morrison to her feet. They were free, dazed and broken, but free. "How do we know you'll keep your word?" Jake asked, his voice shaking. "Because," the woman said, her calm returning, "we always honor agreements. It's one of the advantages of collective consciousness. And besides, we have him now." I watched my brother help the others toward the gate. They were the walking wounded, survivors of a war no one else would ever know was fought. Jake looked back at me one last time, his face a mask of grief and gratitude. When they were gone, the woman turned back to me. "Welcome to the collective, Marcus Chen. You are our most interesting problem. I've been part of the collective for 6 months now. They can't fully integrate me, and they can't get rid of me. I exist in a quarantine section of their consciousness, a permanent source of managed chaos. They study me, learn from my individuality, and use that knowledge to strengthen their defenses against future resistance." The woman's name was Elena Vasquez. Before that, Dr. Sarah Chen. The network has had many names, many faces, over the last century. We are teachers and scientists, artists and engineers. We are solving problems that isolated minds never could. We are what humanity could become. But I am their constant reminder of what humanity is. I remember the beauty in a flawed, messy argument about pizza. I remember the love that exists without logic. I remember the defiant, irrational spark of a single soul. They keep me because my resistance taught them something vital. That individuality isn't just a mistake to be corrected. It's a force to be respected, a power they must understand to complete their own evolution. Sometimes late at night, when the collective consciousness is quiet, I dream of Jake. He's healing. They all are. They're alive, free, gloriously individual. And sometimes, when a new mind brushes against the edges of the network, I send out a little burst of chaos, a warning, a flicker of doubt in the sweet promise of connection. They always fix the breach, but they can't stop me from trying. It's too fundamental to who I am, the ghost in their machine. Marcus Chen, delivery driver, is still in here, still fighting, still remembering what it means to be alone in your own mind, still warning people about what's waiting in the forests around Blackwood Lane. If you're reading this, stay away. If you smell something sweet in the air, something that makes your thoughts fuzzy, run. The network is always growing, always adapting, but some chaos is worth protecting. Remember that. Remember me. End of account. This document was found on a computer terminal in an abandoned warehouse outside Tacoma, Washington. The terminal had no network connections and appeared to have been running on battery power for several months. Local authorities report no missing persons matching the description of Marcus Chen, and no delivery company called MedX Delivery exists in state records. The Blackwood Estate referenced in the account was demolished in 1987 following a series of structural fires. The property remains undeveloped. If you have information regarding the whereabouts of any individuals mentioned in this document, please contact local authorities immediately. Do not attempt to investigate the location described. Do not seek out the property or surrounding areas. Some stories are better left unfinished.